Great. It looks like we're ready to get started. So my name is Matilda Reckford. I'm the project manager for the EHLS program at the Center for Applied Linguistics. Um, During this webinar, please use the Q&A box to enter any questions and comments you might have during this webinar. And we're going to get started. So during this webinar, we're going to talk about the English for Heritage Language Speakers program, what it offers and its requirements. We'll get into the details about the application process and talk a little bit about the skills testing. And then we'll talk about the application process and some tips to keep in mind as you apply. So let me do an overview of the EHLS program before we dive in deeper. So EHLS is a scholarship program with a focus on professional English communication skills and career skills. The program trains advanced speakers of English to be effective communicators and strong candidates for federal jobs. Every scholar admitted to the program receives a full scholarship provided by the federal government, and the program runs from January through each summer. Participants are native speakers of critical languages who have a strong interest in public service. EHLS scholars come from varied cultural, educational, and professional backgrounds, but they are all united by an interest in and a commitment to public service. So why EHLS? EHLS was established because critical language skills are in high demand in the US government. There are other government-sponsored programs to teach critical languages to native English speakers, but this is the only program designed to prepare individuals with native knowledge of critical languages for the federal workplace. EHLS is an initiative of the Defense Language National Security Education Office, or DLNSEO. DLNSEO provides program support and funding. And EHLS started in 2006, and 2027 will be the 21st program year. Scholarships for the EHLS program are awarded through the Defense Language National Security Education Office, or DLNSEO. Each scholarship provides full tuition and fees for the academic program, in addition to a living stipend that's $3,600 a month per month of the program. Scholarship supplements are available upon request by awardees for financial support of relocation costs, health insurance, and technology, including program laptops. Scholarships also include receiving a certificate from DLNSEO upon successful completion of the program. By the time you're finished with the EHLS program, you'll have compiled a beautiful professional portfolio that includes a well-polished resume, writing samples, US government scale English and heritage test scores, and the certificate from EHLS that opens many doors. And scholars must also agree to the terms that we have outlined here on the slide. So that's full-time attendance and successful completion of the academic program, agreement not to work during the academic program, and acceptance of a service requirement after completing the academic program. Let's look at eligibility requirements. You must be a US citizen at the time of application. You must be a native speaker of the languages listed here, and you must have professional level proficiency in that language. You must have advanced proficiency in English, and your proficiency in both English and your native language will be formally tested. And I'll talk a little bit about that process later in the presentation. You must have a college degree that's at least a bachelor's degree. You must be able to use the internet, word processing programs, and PowerPoint. You must be able to commit to full-time participation in the program, and you must be willing to work for the federal government for 1 year in a position with national security responsibilities. It will be your responsibility to find that position. And now moving on to the service requirement. So we're going to work backwards today. We're going to talk about what's expected of you after completing the EHLS program. So the service requirement. Scholars are required to fulfill a 1-year service commitment to work for the federal government, but we are really interested in people that want to make a career of federal work. I want to emphasize that it's the scholar's responsibility to search for and secure a position within the federal government with national security responsibilities. We do not place you into jobs because your job, your search, and your choosing of the job is your own, and we do provide a lot of support from your instruction. There's a career skills development component in the program, but ultimately it will be your job search. And this job search is the focus after completing the intensive portion of the program. And on the slide here, we also talk about the good faith effort. So what does good faith effort mean? It means that you will need to document and keep track of all the jobs and positions that you have applied for, and you will be required to keep a log of those positions in a portal called NSEP.net that's managed by our funders. We have 3 broad tiers of service listed here in descending order of preference. So let's talk about Tier 1. Tier 1 includes our 4 priority areas. EHLS scholars are required to begin their job search within these departments. Any civilian or foreign service positions within these departments will count towards your requirement. They don't necessarily need to be language-enabled positions. Scholars work in varied fields, including cyber, finance, acquisitions, in addition to foreign affairs. And we really encourage you to think broadly about where you may be able to apply your skills. If you're unable to find a suitable position within Tier 1, you can expand your job search to include positions in Tier 2. That's positions within the greater federal government with national security responsibilities. Some past scholars have found jobs in other agencies, but the positions needed to have national security responsibilities, and it was up to the scholar to make that case to NSEP. So NSEP is the office at DLNSEO, the Defense Language National Security Education Office, that will work with you on the completing the service requirement. We have past scholars that are fulfilling their service requirement. For example, at the Department of Commerce, their International Trade Commission, and we have scholars who are, for example, at the Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control. And then Tier 3 only applies if you've exhausted your searches in Tier 1 and Tier 2 and relate to work in U.S. institutions of education related to your DLNSEO funded study. Here are a few examples of where EHLS scholars have worked. So you can see varied positions ranging from language instructor to doing programmatic, management, or intelligence work. In the career skills class, representatives from different agencies come to meet our scholars and present the opportunities available to them in their agencies. Many times they will give out their cards and emails to our scholars, and they may even accept resumes and offer to track applications. As a scholar, you get notifications of exclusive job openings through this portal that I mentioned, NSEP.net, following completion of the intensive portion of the program. Many scholars have gotten great jobs through these exclusive job openings. EHLS scholars have a special hiring advantage that includes Schedule A. So under Schedule A, an agency can hire you faster without going through all the normal requirements if there's an urgent need for your expertise. So those positions may still require security clearance, but the process is faster. So I'll move on now to talk about the academic program, but if you want more information about the service requirement, we recommend tuning in to our What to Expect During and After EHLS webinar that is posted on our website and you can register to our upcoming webinar where we will talk more about the service requirement. And now moving on to the academic program. We work on all 4 language skills. We also work on your professional skills, such as resume writing, dressing for success, delivering a 1 to 2 minute elevator speech, interviewing skills, and appropriately navigating different hierarchical workplace relationships. We have guest speakers that come to teach, for example, how to write a federal style brief, how to deliver an oral brief to a high-level government official. We also have the analysis project, or OSAP. That's our capstone project, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a future slide. And we have guests and recruiters from different agencies that come to speak about the opportunities in their agencies. Your EHLS coursework will include a reading and writing for professionals class, a professional oral communications class, news analysis, and careers skills development class. And I'm going to go into more detail in the next slide. In the news analysis class, you're assigned articles to read and taught how to do critical analysis of the news. Each scholar might, for example, report a piece of news from their area of the world to the entire class on any given day. In the reading and writing class, you learn how to write reports and do research, drawing sound analytic conclusions. In the professional or oral communications class, you're making presentations on a daily basis, and many times the instructor is recording you and making comments for you to review as you watch your tape presentation. By the time the OSAP presentations come around, and I'll talk more about those presentations, scholars are well prepared, they have had so much practice, and everyone does amazingly well. We make you comfortable sending emails in English and teaching you the proper format and protocol that is expected of you. We have a negotiation component. We also teach you how to run an effective meeting. By the time you're halfway through the program, you have a beautifully perfected resume to submit to future employers. We also have mock interviews, and we actually have agency representatives come in and do these practice interviews with you and then give feedback. We even teach you how to dress and get ready for an interview. So the OSAP. OSAP stands for Open Source Analysis Project. And it's our capstone project. This is your chance as an EHLS scholar to shine and show off your knowledge and skills. You will work with a mentor from one of the agencies on a topic provided by them specifically for you, which will relate heavily to your native language and area of the world. Perhaps your mentor is an expert in that area of the world, but does not have the native knowledge, the native language capacity, and the cultural knowledge that you have as a native speaker. You would provide that knowledge in doing research, and you are an asset to them. You get to do research on the topic in your native language and other languages that you know. For example, past scholars from the Maghreb have done their research in Arabic, French, and Tamashek. Some scholars even get job offers as a result of their open source analysis project research and presentation. Many scholars bring copies of their written report to the symposium to give out to interested members of the audience. Talk about some outcomes. One of the things that everyone says is a benefit from the program is that they feel like they have improved their confidence in English. Many say that it's kind of a metamorphosis that they experience. We test your English skills before entering the program, at the beginning of the program, at midpoint, and at the end of the program. And by the time you're finished, you have a beautiful professional portfolio that includes a well-polished resume, writing samples, US government scale English and Heritage test scores, and a certificate from the EHLS program that opens many doors. EHLS the program is a non-degree, non-credit certificate program. Gonna pause and now move on to the how to apply section. So we've done an overview of the program, the service requirement, and the academic program, and now we're going to go over how to apply to this program. There are 2 stages in the application process. All candidates will complete stage 1, while only some candidates will be invited to stage 2. In the first stage, we have steps 1 to 3. So step 1, you prepare your application. Step 2, you submit your application and the supporting documents. And step 3, you complete an oral proficiency interview or OPI in English. Step 4, candidates were provisionally selected into the second stage, take language and technology skills tests virtually. And that's also when you receive your results and final notification. And here is a calendar to give you an overview. So the application is currently available. So you can go to our website now to find the link to the portal where the application lives. The deadline for the application and the supporting documents is 5 p.m. Eastern Time on June 16, 2026. Once an application is submitted and considered complete, applicants will be invited to schedule their oral proficiency interview, or OPI, in English. OPIs are administered through July 11th. We highly recommend submitting your application and scheduling your OPI as soon as possible so you can receive a time that works with your schedule. And I'll talk more about that later. Then EHLS staff notifies candidates of their status in September. Some candidates will be provisionally selected to move on to skills testing. In late September to early October, provisionally selected candidates complete language testing and a basic technology test. And you also complete an additional OPI, an additional oral proficiency interview in your critical language in September and October. And then EHLS staff notifies candidates of their final status in early November 2026. And the program starts on January 4th, 2027. Back to stage 1. This is another visualization of the requirements. So first you complete your application, and then you confirm that all necessary supporting documents have been submitted. That's all by June 16, 2026. And then you complete your OPI, and you have until July 11, 2026. Be sure to complete all sections of the application. You have to upload your supporting documents, so that's a resume and transcript, to the application system. Make sure that you've removed any sensitive personal information from those documents, such as your social security number or date of birth. Foreign degrees must be evaluated, so you will need to contact an accredited evaluation service, such as WES, for this evaluation. You will then need to upload it to the application system. Evaluations can sometimes be a lengthy process. It can take up to 2 months, so we really recommend starting early to avoid missing the deadline. You must also select 1 professional reference. We recommend 2, but you need to select at least 1 professional reference, so that's someone who will write a recommendation letter for you. So you will write their contact information into the online application system, and then the system will email them with a recommendation form. If possible, 1 recommendation should be from your current supervisor. You might also consider former supervisors or professors. We recommend to keep it professional, and we suggest that you do not choose family members or personal friends. You will then receive an automated email confirming the submission of your application. When you have submitted your application, it will be reviewed for completeness by the staff at IIE who manage the online application portal. IIE stands for Institute of International Education. In one of the final slides of this webinar, we have the contact information for IIE, and they are a great support for any questions related to these supporting documents and the portal. Once your application has been reviewed and it has at least one recommendation, you will receive another email with the link and step-by-step instructions for scheduling your OPI in English. Once an application is submitted and considered complete with at least one recommendation letter, applicants proceed to scheduling an oral proficiency interview or OPI in English. Applicants cannot schedule an OPI until they've completed all components of the EHLS application and it has been reviewed for completion. The link and step-by-step instructions on scheduling an OPI in English will be emailed to applicants upon successful review of their application. These OPIs are administered by Language Testing International, or LTI. The OPI is a live 30 to 45-minute telephone conversation between a certified tester and the test taker. OPIs will be administered through July 11th. However, your application still has to be submitted by 5 p.m. Eastern Time on June 16th. So we suggest that you submit your application as soon as possible so that you can secure a date and time that works with your schedule, because that window between June 16th and July 11th is kind of short, but if you submit it earlier, you can take your OPI earlier. You must complete an OPI by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, July 11th, 2026. You cannot reschedule an OPI within 24 hours of the scheduled test time. A missed OPI will not be rescheduled, and applicants must meet the minimum standard of an ILR 2. If not, you will be disqualified and notified of the decision. I can add that the OPI, like I said, is a telephone conversation, so you can take it from your home, and you will also be proctored on Zoom, so you'll also be on Zoom, so a proctor can verify that your environment is secure and check your ID, and then you'll take the actual test on your telephone. If you meet the minimum standard of an ILR 2 on the English OPI, your application will be reviewed by the EHLS Selection Committee. Following this review, applicants will be notified of their status in September 2026. You'll be notified by an email in September, so please check your email. At that time, around 50 individuals who pass this first stage of the review process will become what we call provisionally selected applicants, and they will be invited to additional language and technology testing, or what we call skills testing. If your application is provisionally selected, you will then proceed with this skills testing, and up to 18 of those candidates will be selected for admission into the program. Please note that an invitation to the skills test does not indicate admittance to the EHLS program. The results of your performance on the skills testing will be combined with the selection rankings to determine whether you are offered a scholarship. And these final decisions will be made in November 2026. And on this slide, we talk a little bit about what these tests are. So there's testing in English reading, listening, and writing. And there's an OPI in your critical language. So it's the same format as the OPI in English. It's via phone with a remote proctor. And this time the test will be testing your speaking skills in your critical language. And you will also be tested on your basic technology skills. EHLS staff extends offers of admission in November 2026, and we anticipate selecting 18 scholars. So it is a competitive program. We have around 200 applications every year. And the second stage of the skills testing, we have about 50 provisionally selected candidates, and then 18 scholars who make it into the program. And I have some tips to share. So in terms of completing your application, we recommend using information from your resume to complete the employment section of your application. The information you fill in the application should be consistent with your resume. The goal is to really make it easy for the application reviewers to understand your education and your work history. And there's an opportunity there to explain any gaps, and we really recommend explaining any gaps. And we also recommend gathering your transcript documents as soon as possible. If you have a transcript from a foreign institution, you need to have it evaluated. Transcript evaluations must show the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree. We have a link on our website to a list of credentialed evaluation services, and this will also be listed on the application. There's a resource there on the application, specifically on the question of evaluations. Another tip is to ask for references early. You will list the references and their contact information, and the portal will send them an email directly from the application. You'll enter their contact and click send, and it will email them directly from the application. They will fill out a reference form and submit a letter, and they will need to do this on their own once you put their information. So your part of the reference is done once you've put in their information. You cannot upload a reference letter on their behalf. We recommend submitting an application sooner rather than later, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can get your OPI scheduled at a time that's convenient. Another tip on the essay portion of the application, we recommend writing specific and detailed essays. It's important that you clearly demonstrate your interest in working for the federal government. We highly recommend reviewing the selection criteria as you write your essays, and the selection criteria definitions are on the EHLS website. And on this next slide, you can see a screenshot of this document that is linked on the website. It's linked in a few places in the website, but there is a section on the website called Get Informed, where we link a few of the resources, including the selection criteria definitions, which will be very helpful for you, so that you make sure you really address each criterion when you're writing your essays. These definitions is what the reviewers will be looking for in your application. And now stage 2, as I mentioned, stage 2 includes a number of tests. It includes the English reading, writing, and listening tests, and includes the OPI in your critical language and a basic technology tests. So if you go to our website and you look at the step that describes the skills testing, you can see that there's some information there on how to prepare for these tests. We have a link to a technology skills self-assessment that you can review, and other helpful information for you to prepare for these tests. And finally, we recommend following EHLS program on social media and joining our mailing list. This is where we announce events like these, in-person events, and any other information. We have a couple virtual events coming up. Next Thursday, we'll have a live Q&A session where we'll give an overview, but we'll really have time to answer any questions and go over some common questions of applicants. And our next webinar, which is bolded, the March 27th, will have valuable information on the application system. So I really recommend attending that webinar as well. And like I mentioned, the what to expect during and after EHLS also will go into more detail on the service requirement, so what to expect during and after. Um, so we recommend attending those, and just like today's webinar, the recordings of these webinars will be posted. But also when you sign up to attend these webinars, we also email you afterwards to thank you for attending, and we send you the direct recording as well. And on this slide, you can see the contact information for myself, Matilda. You can contact me for any questions related to the program, curriculum, schedule, any questions related to the testing and the OPI scheduling. And you can contact our colleague Leah at IIE. Our colleagues at IIE really can help you on any questions related to the supporting documents, references, any questions related to the online application system. Great. I see that some people have entered in the Q&A box, and we have some time, so thank you for for posting here. And please take this time to post any questions. So we have a question on what does it mean to have an equivalent college degree? So the evaluation service that will provide you with an evaluation of your international degree, that's basically the main thing that they should say on their evaluation, is whether it's equivalent to a bachelor's. If you have a master's or PhD, if you have anything other than a master's, we ask for your most recent degree. So it could also be a master's or PhD or and I think in this question you weren't sure if the person had finished finished their program in Ukraine. So I don't know if then you would have a transcript and a degree that you could have evaluated. But I would recommend getting in touch with me and happy to discuss that further. We also have a question on whether there's an age limit. Here, I'll stop sharing. Whether we have an age limit. We don't have an age limit to apply to the program. So we have this minimum requirement of having a bachelor's degree, but there is no age limit. We have a question from someone who applied previously to the program. So if you want to apply again, you have to submit a new application. You have to start it over in the system. But you can use a lot of the elements that you have used in the past. So you can use the same essays that you have used in the past. You can request the same references, but you will have to request them again. So they'll have to submit reference letters for you again. And if you have applied in the past, it's possible that some of your testing is still valid from previous years. So in that case, we can waive that requirement. And so I know it's a longer process to go back and do an application again, but some of the process should be faster doing it for a second time. We have a question if a DLPT can replace an OPI. So correct me if I'm wrong, I think DLPT includes maybe listening and writing maybe, or so DLPTs could be used for it would have to be the same skill basically. So if you're thinking that you have a DLPT in your native language, but it doesn't include speaking as a skill, then you would still have to take the OPI to assess speaking. If it's a DLPT in English, and it has the requirements of English, reading, writing, depending on the skill, those can work. It really is about the skill and whether it was assessed on the ILR scale. So the ILR scale is the Interagency Language Roundtable scale. We have some information on that on the website. And that's the scale on which you're tested for all these tests. And the minimum requirement is an ILR level 2 in English and ILR level 3 in in your native language. And you can kind of go on the website and kind of see what that means. I think sometimes it's worth kind of exploring more about the ILR because um, um, the scale technically goes up to a 5, but really when you test having, for example, a level 3 in your native language, like that 3 is a very good score basically in your native language, and then 2 is a very good score also in English. And I believe we have in the next applying to EHLS webinar, I go into more detail about that scale. We have a question on getting my email. So like I said, after today, I'll make sure to send you an email from my email with the recording, so you can feel free to answer there and ask any questions. And then we have a question on displaying the slide that shows the jobs. So let's see if I can maybe share my screen again. Apologies for the scrolling. So this is a slide that has some examples of jobs, and thank you for your question. That prompts me to also tell you about the website where we also have another resource there. I just want to check it's here. In this Get Informed section, you can see the selection criteria definitions that I mentioned. We have an essay guidance document, but we also have a list of federal agencies where graduates have completed their service requirement. So while this slide kind of gives you some more detail on the actual positions, this is a great way for you to kind of begin your search when it comes to what types of federal jobs you can do after the program. And we really recommend doing that search as you apply, because there is an essay question in your application to ask about what you would want to do after the program. So really recommend taking a look at these agencies and these kind of bureaus and kind of going into more detail in terms of the different positions that you would be interested in doing after the program. And then we have a question, is there an age limitation to the EHLS program? I finished my MA in 2023. Is it still okay to apply? So like I said, no age limitation to the program. And yeah, if your most recent degree is a master's degree, then you can put that transcript as part of your application, as opposed to putting the bachelor's. You can upload your most recent transcript. And then we have a question on reference recommendation letters. So you don't have to provide a reference from the most recent supervisor. That's sort of what we recommend. You have the opportunity of 2 different recommendations, although we only require 1. So it's really up to you. But if you have the opportunity of having a reference from someone more recent and then maybe from um, a less recent supervisor or maybe a less recent professor, you can also do that. And you can use the same references you have used in the past. They'll just have to submit that letter again, but they can submit the same letter that they've submitted in the past. And um, so you in the question you also ask if you have to update your resume. So that's sort of an opportunity if you've applied before to go in and kind of submit everything um, kind of updated for this year. So yes, definitely recommend updating your resume if you're gonna re-upload it in your application. Um, and um, new this year is we really emphasized when you upload transcript, resume, any of this documentation to really try to remove any personal information like date of birth and social security number. So it's worth going back to make sure none of that is in the resume as well. Um, and I think someone mentioned the DLPT is reading and listening. So if it's reading and listening in your critical language, you would still have to test for speaking um, in your critical language if you get to that stage in September. Would it be a problem if your reference is a friend and former colleague at the same time? No, I think that's great. Former colleagues, I think, could make very good references as well. And we have a question on the stipend. So the stipend is $3,600 a month. How successful are the scholars were the scholars in the past to find employment? Um, so we don't quite have the number on um, we don't really have any cases of not fulfilling the service requirement. We from kind of recent memory, the requirement is to begin fulfilling that 1 year service within 3 years of completing the program. So we might not have the most recent data of people who are still within that window of trying to find the employment that will fulfill the service requirement. Sometimes there can be some delay between finishing the program and starting that position because there might be a security clearance process and things that kind of make that process a little longer. But the NSEP service team, so the people there's a team who work at DLNSEO, who at our funder, whose job is to help you find jobs, right? So they really are there to help you find these exclusive job opportunities, to help you with your resume. They organize career fairs, things that you can, still attend after graduation. Um, so with this and all these other, all the tiers and all these other options for fulfilling the service requirement, my answer is that scholars are very successful in finding employment. And then there's a question about your job not being necessarily related to the scholarship, so you don't know if you want to add it. Um, I can provide sort of a general answer, but I would say it's worth also. I'm happy to chat about this individually if you want to reach out. I think the beauty of this program is they really are interested in a lot of different skills. And so I think, showing a variety of jobs, I don't think would hurt your application. Um, and definitely what is important is to explain any gaps. So if you do want to omit, a part of your career trajectory and don't want to mention it, then you want to really explain that to make it as clear as possible to the reviewers. Um, yeah, there's a question on whether scholars, for example, for last year may still be looking for jobs. So that can definitely happen. That the process can take a little longer um, for finding jobs, but it's it's really something that the funder really tries to work with you and really supporting you with. Um, I can mention that there are components of the government that are definitely hiring, and our funder um, very regularly kind of tells us about different opportunities that are coming up, and so there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there. Um, and we have alumni from last year that are currently securing positions and completing their service requirement. I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, and thank you for your questions. I'll make sure to send you this recording, and feel free to reach out with any questions. You can email or call, and I'll be happy to support you in having a successful application. So we hope to see you in future webinars as well. And thanks again for coming. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.